But speaking of the IRS and people looking at finances and other alleged potential criminal activity, an old friend of ours has poked his head back out in public again, Brian. And before we go onto the wrestling portion of the program, as if this has been already the wrestling portion of the program, we got to talk about our old friend Colin Thompson, who stunningly is getting back in the podcasting business and has issued a press release. Well, I know technically he's been in it.
Yeah, he never left.
But back in a public way, he's showing his face in public, and he's issued a press release saying that he wants to be like the voice of transparency and honesty in podcasting and a reformer of the horrible practices, which is sort of like saying, yeah, let's go hire Charles Manson to give us an insight into cult behavior. And we felt that we couldn't let the public be preyed on by a potential person who allegedly has committed numerous alleged crimes and is trying now to get people to buy his level of bullshit again.
Is that a question?
That was more of a declarative statement. I will say, well, let me ask you this. I'll ask you a question and then you can begin to answer because you are under oath. You can pretty much refer to somebody as being a liar and they can't take any action against you if you have actual documentation of them telling lies. That pretty much removes any defense. So Colin Thompson is a liar. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Colin Thompson is a liar. We could say that as the party that was the lone party active from the creditor standpoint throughout the bankruptcy proceedings. We were involved. We wanted to find out what happened. Where did our money go? How was this man behaving as the head of...
Where did other people's money go?
Yeah. Well, and again, it's important to note, our situation's a little different than everyone else's. Everyone kind of has a different situation. With ours, he stole the money. It's a little different because he had the choice to send us money. He decided not to.
Yes. But we enjoyed having found out where a lot of this money went, ours and other people's.
We have a better idea of everything than probably anyone. Quite frankly, we have all the documents that they submitted. We have all the documents that Podcast One submitted. We have documents that they don't know we have. We've done a lot of due diligence. We've done a lot of research. We've done a lot of investigating. So, yeah, we didn't expect the bankruptcy to give us back the money that was stolen. That's not what bankruptcy court does. Bankruptcy court, to be very honest with you, and you could even ask a bankruptcy attorney, bankruptcy court is there to fuck creditors. And unfortunately, they presume that the person applying for bankruptcy isn't a crook. And we knew that there was very little that could really be done in bankruptcy court. This was his game. This was his plan.
But the key part of bankruptcy court is that the court part of it still means you're under oath. You have to participate in discovery. You have to file documents. You have to answer questions. And you basically have to perform all of the functions as if you were in any other court in the land, which gives people an excellent opportunity, just speaking in just abstract terms, Brian, and not specifically about any ongoing litigation. It gives people an excellent opportunity to figure out who done it and how they done it and get the stuff to prove it.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't want to get involved because of how costly it would be, which led to some funny moments in the bankruptcy court where the judge would kind of question how much we were spending to try to get answers and at the same time say, how come none of the other creditors are here? Well, they don't want to spend the money that this is all costing to try to get answers. And Colin certainly didn't expect us to, and he certainly tried to use some retaliatory tactics in the middle of the bankruptcy to get rid of us, and none of them really worked at all.
I don't know why he didn't expect that when I believe that's almost exactly what I told him when he first... Well, I didn't tell him. I told old Rob Ellen. I said, we are going to get our money eventually, some way or another. give us our money or we will not go away ever.
And we're going to talk about Rob Ellen in the future, and we're going to talk a lot more about the bankruptcy in the future. There's a lot to talk about. And on the topic of the bankruptcy, before we even talk about our lawsuit, there are deposition videos. Stephen P. New deposed Colin Thompson for, I want to say, 7 hours in August. And there's more than that, too. But we have videos if you want to see. It's easy to make yourself a baby face when you're writing your own bio. It's not as easy when people see you and hear you and watch you. So if you want to see Colin Thompson in action, if you want to hear Stephen P. New in action, 877-50-STEVE, get even with Stephen. NewLawOffice.com. There's a plug on the experience. Wow. But if you want to check that out, it's on the official Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Arcadian Vanguard. It's also on Twitter, all sorts of social media. It will be on more social media very soon.
And let me just flesh it out real quick, because you may have glossed over, because we know what you're talking about. But for the people, yes, this is a video of an official deposition under oath of Stephen P. New examining, cross-examining, whatever the terminology is, of Colin Thompson, the Kast media weasel in question, and with his attorney by his side. And there's some wonderful exchanges. And this video is obviously, since Arcadian Vanguard is the entity that is involved officially with this bankruptcy, this video is Arcadian Vanguard property and is on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel, because we do everything by the book over here. And we encourage you to look at a squirming, sweating. I hope you put them up in order so people can see. First, he's got a jacket, and then he loses the jacket, and then there's another button loose on, then he's wiping his head, and then he's just, he's almost shirtless by the time this thing is over with.
Well, after the first break, Stephen, let's just say we have reason to believe that Stephen caused Colin to feel quite upset, and that they were afraid about continuing. Well, that's based on what his lawyer called our lawyer about. You know, Stephen did a great job because, you know,
the whole crying thing is hearsay and we can't prove it.
Not on video. It's not on video.
Not on video. It's just being talked about by many people.
But again, we have the deposition videos up. There'll be more. We'll talk more about them in a moment. We have a lawsuit. We'll talk more about this in the future as well. We're coming back with more about this regularly.
Yeah, the other lawsuit has been going on for a bit now, based on the information that we were able to obtain in the previous proceeding. And this type of lawsuit is the one where somebody's going to say, yeah, you need to give these some bitches their money. Well, that type of lawsuit.
If they look at the facts, that may be what happens. And let's see what a jury thinks of Mr. Thompson. But we have sued Colin Thompson, as well as his co-conspirators, his wife, Christine Thompson, his father, Rod Thompson, his father-in-law, who's currently harboring him, or he lives with. I don't know if I'm allowed to say harboring. If I'm not, strike that from the record. But he currently lives with Matthew Yu and Podcast One and Live One. And again, I said it before, our situation, the Cornette shows with Kast Media, is different than Theo Vaughn's situation. It's different than Brandon Schaub's situation. It's different than any other shows. And, you know, you wanted a fight, you're going to get a fight. And we got the facts. And we got a lot here. You know, you brought something up before, and I know we're going to play a little bit of audio here. This may be a new recurring feature. You brought up how Colin's reemerged. And it was part of a plan. We knew this was kind of coming, where they relaunched the Kast Media website. They relaunched Colin Thompson, or launched ColinThompson.com, and he put up statements to the industry. Please share these deposition videos if anyone knows podcasters with the industry, giving a completely false representation of what happened with Kast Media based on facts. And he has lied several times in there while trying to obviously posture and present himself to an industry that he needs. He can't get work anywhere else. This guy's unemployable, in my eyes. So he's now trying to present himself as an industry reformer, which, if you went through the bankruptcy, you realize in no way is he an industry reformer. Industry reform means creators get paid and then pay the advertisers. Creator first. That's industry reform. Not, hey, we came up with a new way.
The only time you've applied reform to this guy is when you talk about reform school.
Yeah. But when you come up with a new business model, which is basically, here's how we'll get paid and get you your money and you'll believe us, you've already poisoned the well. Here's from the press release they sent out about Kast Media. Kast Media is a leading podcast studio and network known for premium, genre-defining original storytelling. I actually know what shows they have and I know what their numbers are. They are not a industry-leading anything. And if you want to go look at the reviews of his shows, and this isn't us because we never even talked about this. If you ever want to go look at the reviews of his shows, The Vigilante, Lost in Panama, the big one's The Opportunist, Good Cult, go look at the reviews all over Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. The audience for those shows hate those shows now. The audience for those shows say, it turns out The Opportunist isn't good without the actual host and producer who got the show to be popular, who left Kast Media after all of the bullshit. But let me go back to this. With a slate of critically acclaimed shows, Kast blends cinematic storytelling with the immediacy of podcasting. This guy went to the Court Bauer School of Buzzwords. Ridiculous. Founded by Colin Thompson, the company has a renewed focus on transparency and long-term creator empowerment.
A renewed focus on transparency since the last time we got caught.
Well, it would, in this case, it would just be a focus on transparency because there was no transparency before. And long-term creator empowerment. And is building a stronger, more resilient future media ecosystem through innovative content and industry reform. The industry reform needs to be the industry saying we're not going to work with this guy. The industry reform needs to be the advertising agency saying we're not going to give this guy any business after he previously took the business we gave him and didn't pay anyone. The industry reform needs to be to get rid of people who are grifters. People who are grifting on podcasting, looking for suckers, whether they're investors or people who don't know his name and reputation and what he's done, or people that work there who will be gullible enough to work with him. That's the problem. The problem isn't the industry. The industry for independent podcasters is wonderful. The problem is the network system, and the problem is the people like Colin who just want to look at other people as marks, for lack of a better term, that will fund their lifestyle.
Well, boy, and he lived high on the hog, as Aunt Lola would say, for a couple of years there.
Don't call his wife that.
No, I'm not talking about her. For heaven's sake, I don't want to insult hogs like that. No, I'm saying that he made it for a couple of years, and now, like you said, he's in the in-laws' basement. He's got lawsuits hanging over his head. He needs work. He's out there. He's still trying to exploit his, we'll be talking about this in the weeks to come, folks. He's still trying to exploit his contacts at Podcast One. But the reason why those people are being sued that Brian mentioned earlier is because there's a statute in the state of California where he was conducting his various activities that if you defraud someone, that you and or anyone that benefits from the proceeds of that defraudation can be hauled into court. And that's exactly who is now being hauled into court. That's right. We have a variety of information, as Brian said. We don't want to go, we got all kinds of stuff to do today, but I want to go to the clip because this is an example, folks, of what you can see the video on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel, all the deposition videos, they're clearly marked. You can see the weasel begin to sweat and melt as questions are bombarding him, and he's trying to figure out, wait a minute, what lie did I tell before so I can tell the same one again? That type of thing on his face. And this is an example of it. And Brian, I feel like we're on the Tonight Show setting up a clip, but
yes. Ha ha! Yes!
The subject of this, believe it or not, folks, is Howie Mandel. And the fact that in some fashion, Colin Thompson and Kast Media had ended up renting studio space from Howie Mandel and or his company, and then had to do a settlement and basically got kicked out of the place. Brian, you can probably recap that a little bit better than than I.
And we're going to play some audio here. And again, the full section here is available on the Arcadian Vanguard YouTube channel. It's on my Twitter page. I know Jim retweeted it, so anyone can check it out. Or just go to YouTube and search for Deposition of Colin Thompson or Kast Media or Colin Thompson, Howie Mandel. It'll come right up. But there's a studio space in a warehouse run by Howie Mandel's company on Havenhurst in Van Nuys, California. And it is the address of business for Kast Media. Although Colin's living in St. Louis, although his plates are still California, funny enough. But although he's living in St. Louis and has been since they sold the house that we found out that they had put in a trust, the address on record is still the address of this studio. So in questioning Colin about this, Stephen Pinu ran into some interesting things. There's a bunch of stuff on the bankruptcy petition, studio equipment, furniture, that are assets of Kast Media that Colin doesn't know where they are. And then finally, he says maybe they were part of the settlement for rent that he says it wasn't rent that he owed. I believe here he says that it was upcoming rent that they knew they wouldn't be able to pay, but they had months left on the lease. So again, according to what he says in his video, go watch it. According to him, the settlement was, we won't pay any more that's left on the lease. You get to keep all of our furniture and all of our equipment. And I get to use an office there, at least up to this point, which is August 1st, 2024. So let's go to this audio and we'll have a funny little end here. And I hope I explained this well. Here's Colin talking to Stephen Pinu during the deposition, August 1st, 2024, in Santa Monica, California, all about the Havenhurst studio that Kast Media had been using, that is owned by Howie Mandel.
You don't know what that is on the balance sheet. Where is the office furniture that's valued at $29,385.81, Mr. Thompson?
I would assume that would have been part of the settlement agreement that we already discussed with the lease, the place that we were renting.
What's a settlement agreement with Howie Mandel have to do with $29,385.81 worth of furniture that you list as an asset of Kast Media as of January 31, 2024?
I made a deal, part of the settlement deal, for the remainder of what we owed, for the remainder of that lease, was that we would do essentially a trade of equal value. That would be the equipment for the remainder of what we owed the lease. So they got the use of the equipment. We didn't have to pay the remainder of the lease. We continued to have access to the office and the studio, thereafter for a specified period of time.
Why are you still listing office furniture that went to Howie Mandel or his company or whomever in 2023 as an asset of Kast Media Inc. in January of 2024?
I don't know.
Shouldn't be on there, should it?
I don't know.
You should know. You're the CEO.
Okay, we're going to stop this now. You're badgering the witness. You're telling him what he should and shouldn't know. He's answered the question already. For you to scold him and tell him what he should and shouldn't know is not productive.
Put a good non-speaking objection on the record, Ms. Cohen.
My objection is you're badgering the witness.
I'm not badgering. I'm not wolverining. I'm not any other rodent-ing, Mr. Thompson. Put a good non-speaking objection on the record.
Objection, badgering.
Badgering isn't even an objection. I promise this will be like a CLE. We'll get through the federal rules of evidence, federal rules of civil procedure, and everything else today. Mr. Thompson, if you made a deal whereby Howie Mandel or his company or whomever got this $29,385 worth of furniture in 2023, it shouldn't be listed as an asset in a bankruptcy petition as of January 2024, correct?
I don't know. We would have to investigate that.
All right. We will. Studio equipment.
Mm-hmm.
$24,748.26. Tell me about that.
That is under our fixed assets.
The total current assets.
Oh yeah, but fixed assets under total current assets. No, it's not under.
Nope, it's not under total fixed assets. Was the studio equipment part of the deal with Howie Mandel?
It is under fixed assets. Was the studio equipment part of the deal with Howie Mandel? We gave our landlord equipment and furniture in that settlement agreement.
So this $24,748.26 was part of the 2023 deal with Howie Mandel or his company, correct?
I don't know. I would have to go back and investigate.
All right. And if I ask you the same question about why equipment that was a part of a 2023 settlement is still listed as a Kast Media asset, you can't answer that question, can you?
Objection, Ms. Kast, the witness's prior testimony.
Nope. You said, I don't know, I'll have to check, I'll have to get back to you, that kind of thing with respect to office furniture. I'm asking, is your question the same relative to studio equipment at $24,748.26?
Is my question the same?
Is your answer the same?
Correct. I would have to look at the detail and investigate.
All right, so let's make sure. Kast Media doesn't own office furniture or studio equipment totaling those amounts as of January 2024, does it?
I'm not aware of that. I'm not aware that we own equipment outside of what we provided as part of that settlement agreement.
So why is it listed as an asset?
I don't know, but it's possible that it wasn't updated in the accounting software.
All right. Anything else on this page that hasn't been updated?
I don't know.
Well, let me stop it here for a second, and we have another an added feature to this. But let me just say, when he says we need to do this, we need to do that, Kast Media is one person. I mean, now they've hired a new CEO, and this guy's in for a roller coaster ride, I'm sure. But Kast Media was run and controlled by Colin Thompson. Colin Thompson owned over 99% of the stock. Colin Thompson made every single decision for the company. Colin Thompson controlled when money went out and who it went to for the company. But you ask him this here, and I don't know. He's the only one who would know this stuff. There's no one else who was in that loop.
Well, at some point, potentially in the future, when we are hopefully able to broadcast some of the testimony from the accountants he's thrown under the bus, we'll get a clearer picture of that. But there is, as you mentioned, an addendum to that clip that you just heard, Brian. It's on the YouTube channel, as you mentioned, the Arcadian Vanguard channel, and it's in written form because it's a letter, but you could read it here for the folks to fully understand the punchline of what you just heard.
Yeah, in the midst of all of this, of us being an active creditor, of us getting documents from all sorts of sources, of us deposing Colin, we deposed the CFO, then CFO of Podcast One. We got a great story about that coming up, about this guy's disappearance at the last second. But we did all of this, and while this is all happening, there are other people, obviously, there are other people who still feel slighted. There are other people who know the reality of Kast Media and know that Colin, even if they're not involved, they assume Colin's trying to spin everything, that he's a victim, or he did nothing wrong, when it's quite the contrary. And Dustin Knaus, who I think we've mentioned on the show previously, he was on the CoffeeZilla video, worked at Kast Media. I believe he had, not necessarily stock, but he had convertible, I forget exactly what, he was supposed to have stock in the company that he got screwed out of, I believe is the story. And I could be wrong, I'm saying I believe that's the story. But he wrote a letter to the judge while all this was going on. And this was filed September 11th, 2024. Let me read it here. As a result of Mr. Thompson's frivolous spending and bad agreements, I was told he had also stopped paying rent for the Havenhurst location for 8 months. Towards the end of his time there, in, I believe, 2022 or perhaps early 2023, I was told by a person with inside knowledge that Mr. Thompson had brought investors in the Havenhurst studios to show them around. The owner of the property had security cameras everywhere and overheard Mr. Thompson telling the potential investors that Mr. Thompson owned the property and that Howie Mandel was renting the space from Mr. Thompson. Upon this, Mr. Mandel's team told Colin to vacate the building and that he was no longer allowed to conduct business there. Which would seem to contradict, again, in this video, he says he's still allowed to use that space. this letter to the court says a completely different story.
He rented the space, then he couldn't pay for it. Then he was so far behind that he had to give him his equipment and his furniture. And he said, please let me get my mail here and still come in and sit in this room and act like I've got a company. And then they catch him on security video showing people around he's trying to sell his investors in his scheme. And he's telling them he owns the place and he rents it to Howie. This is what we're dealing with, folks, this guy.
And we don't know for sure if the settlement happened before or after this, just to be clear. We will. And by the way, apparently there's video of this. And apparently Howie Mandel may not be too interested in negative publicity or wanting to let that video out, but it's there and we're going to chase after it. So Howie, unless you want to get all upset like you got touched by someone with germs or whatever your problem is.
Oh, come on now. I can't say anything bad about people that don't want the germs.
Well,
but if he didn't want germs, he shouldn't have rented to Colin.
Again, the footage is out there. There's a lot out there that, this is known.
Have we?
There's a lot out there I don't think Colin knows. And, again, we'll talk about Podcast One in the future. There are people who hate Rob Ellen specifically and Podcast One Live One far more than we ever could. We just want justice. There are other parties out there right now who hate all these people a whole lot more than we do. So we're just hoping we can somehow get to them first. Please, God, let us get our court case first. But man, there are pitchforks, there are fucking machetes, there are all sorts of people out there wanting to get there. But we got Stephen Pinu, we got Andre the Giant, we got the best team. And again, we've been talking about Stephen Pinu for years. If you want to hear him at work, you want to hear the due diligence, the research, everything he did, go listen to these transcripts. Go watch them. Watch the depositions, because seeing Colin Thompson is a big part of the story. Body language is a big part of the story. Check them out, the Arcadian Vanguard video channel, and I think we'll have more about this next week.
This is the best courtroom drama since the Watergate yes. trials, or the Watergate trials. Have we told the people that at one point Colin Thompson actually listed as an asset in his bankruptcy a lawsuit against me for slandering him?
No, defamation. It was against you, against Theo
defaming
Vaughn.
Him.
Yeah, Theo Vaughn, CoffeeZilla, a few other people, I think. Yeah.
I think Stephen Pinu set like a 500-page transcript of our omnibus down and said, could you please highlight with a yellow highlighter every place where you believe.
Well, that was one of the things when they were trying to fuck with us in the bankruptcy, which again, we expected and we kind of knew. They were trying to say that there was some sort of confidentiality violated by the YouTube videos. And we did a lot of stuff. So every time we said, name one thing, point out a single example, they couldn't do it. And it was ridiculous. Name one thing. And then he wants to pretend like he hasn't watched them. He would say, I have reason to believe they defamed me. And then the same thing. Say one thing. Name one thing that we said that purposely was a lie. Because that's what defamation is. Truth is an absolute defense. So they can't name anything. You know, there are people we talk to who have been afraid of speaking out against Kast because either they're afraid Colin will sue them, or they signed a separation agreement that they think prohibits them from being able to talk honestly about it. Obviously, our case may be a different thing, and we may have to subpoena some people, but there's been a lot of people out there who have really wanted to say something, and I hope they do, because the idea that this cretin thinks he's going to bounce away, pretend that the bankruptcy was some sort of vindication or victory, which it wasn't. It was bankruptcy court. But that was his plan, to just try to get away from all the lawsuits against Kast.
And now trying to paint himself as I'm a reformer and we're going to be transparent. And he's looking for people to give him more money and work with him again, as he's just gone bankrupt and is currently being sued for taking people's fucking money.
And by the way, one last thing on this. There's a company out there called James Media. You can Google them and see their website. They present themselves as being behind a lot of podcasts. On their website, they have images of Theo Vaughn, who's a former Kast victim. Sarah Silverman, same thing. Nick Vial, if that's how you pronounce his name. Joe Rogan, I mean, they have the biggest podcast in the world on there. And we could tell you this because it's in the monthly reports that we get. Colin Thompson's been making, or let me rephrase that, Kast Media has been making a lot of money from this company over the last several months for consulting, operations consulting, running their operations, and advertising. So if you're one of the podcasters out there who he took money from.
Because now, wait a minute, because this looks like an outlaw wrestling website where you go to, oh, what's the roster of fucking Oshkosh Championship Wrestling? And you see Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, whatever. There's no indication that any of these podcasts are actually affiliated or how with this company. There's just pictures of it.
Yeah, and I don't know if we're allowed to reveal the specifics of the contract, but we have the contract between Kast Media and James Media. And let's just say Kast Media would make a good amount of money off every cent that came in. So again, if you're one of those podcasts, you should know who's behind you. You should know who's working on your behalf or who's representing that they are. Colin Thompson's out there with Kast Media. He's now the chief creative officer because he's so creative with all of his little stories. And he's also with James Media. Or Kast Media is with James Media. Something to look at in the future. And again, we're going to have a lot more about this in the future. For the record, let's just end with, they owe us $250,000 plus in their own words. That's what they say they owe us. And that's where we are.
And by the way, Colin, just on a personal basis, I called you a liar before. And as we mentioned, truth is the ultimate defense. But if you want to take me to court, well, let's do it all at the same time. Because you're going to be in court with us, so we might as well be in court with you. If you can prove that I have lied about you, then please feel free. But otherwise, Colin, you're a liar and you took our money.
And everyone
prove me wrong.
Well, again, we'll have more about this in the future.
Yes, we will. And in the meantime, we're going back to the past, Brian.